Welcome to the Weed Out, where we weed out the ghouls and the nonsense in our backyard, and it probably applies to yours. I'm Spencer Fox Peterson, and I'm with my partner, as always, Joanna.
Hi, everybody.
How are you doing today, Joanna?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing great. We're just talking offline about the fall and all that stuff, and it's definitely for those wondering what it's a little context. It is crisp outside today in New England. It feels like a fall day. It's
It is
here.
nipply. It's here. It is.
But we have an episode today where it's some news that hopefully give you hope and keep you warm. And as always, we're not going to just talk about all the good things. We're going to actually give a nuanced approach to our topic today, and that the topic is unions or workplace organization, workplace democracy. Unions are a form of those other concepts, and worker solidarity can take many forms. It doesn't just have to be a union like the electrical workers union, right, Joanna, or the teachers union, or God
I
forbid,
agree.
the police unions.
Long term, I hope we all have unions, but I completely agree with you. It's not, you don't have to be in one to have solidarity.
And the union is an institution. It's not an idea. It's a way to conceptualize the idea of collective bargaining.
Exactly.
And there's different ways of organizing them. For example, in sports, there's players unions, there's coaches unions, there's referee unions, and then they also have associations too, which are different. So like the NFL has a players association, which is set up differently than a union. And I could, as a sports nerd, we're not going to bore you all with the sports ball today, but like it's an excellent analogy. There's a lot of analogies to be drawn from professional sports and college sports, where we could talk about exploitation and propaganda. Like, the owners do a really good job of making it look like the top tier players are the norm in the league, when the reality is most people in the league are broke in the leagues. Right. Like, they make a short, quick money real quick, but they put their body on the line, and their careers aren't long. So anyways, there's a whole thing that could be done there. So that's probably most of the conversation in our daily life and our pop culture, I should say, is about players unions and player contracts. And to me, it's a really subversive thing, because then it ends up, we have people, like, you listen to a sports talk radio show, we have people talking negatively about the workers, because the context is billionaires versus millionaires. And the millionaires are a small minority of those players. The rest make maybe a couple $100,000, but they have to pay off an uncle that helped get them to where they got. They have to help their mom pay off a mortgage if they have their parents, whatever. Anyway, so sports business and sports media is a fantastic analogy to our world. But today we're just going to talk about unions and collective bargaining and workplace democracy. Full disclosure, I've never been in a union. I have never organized one. I've worked on a lot of companies. Most of my career, other than working for a bank, was working on small, I call them pirate ships. It kind of was these unofficial cliques or power players. There was places you walked in and there's been a guy that's been there for 30 years, and there's no way you can get around that guy. He's always going to get what he needs first. So there's like this anti-worker solidarity thing that happens. And we have a power vacuum where we have some unions in this country, in this world, and then we have other places that are completely ununionized. And then what happens is certain unions that do exist get so powerful, i.e. police unions.
Definitely.
And then everybody's like, well, fuck unions. Right. So because we don't have democracy in the workplace everywhere, there are places that are exploited. There are places that are a little more fair because they're smaller, like the pirate ships I was on. I had to work next to most of my bosses, the people that own the business. I've had to literally work hand in hand with them. So they can, like, there's an unspoken agreement of, hey man, if I leave tomorrow, you're going to have to do all this. So that is like a mutually assured discretion. That is, as good as right to work can be, right? But most people don't work in small businesses. Most businesses are big, and you don't have a way of collectively bargaining. And we have a lot of things in pop culture that make unions look bad. And then there's things in real life like police unions. And this segues me into Joanna's experience with unions. Joanna's in the Mass Teachers Association, MTA.
Yeah. So MTA is I think I'm pretty positive it's the largest union in Massachusetts.
Well, the cops all have their own fraction,
right?
Unions,
So it's
and
ours.
They have political action committees that tie them together. That's where they get dangerous. But you have a monolith.
So like the union, the way
yours is a true silo.
Well, and the way that it's set up is similar to how you described some of the sports unions. So it encompasses like I'm not an actual teacher, and I'm an educator in some ways. I do teach sometimes, but it's not my role. Typically, I'm an institutional review board analyst. I work in higher education, and so within Massachusetts, I fall under like it's almost like there are different. So we have like PSUA, it's a professional union. We have Professional Union B, we have, and this is just at my university, and then we have some other offsets, different parts to that union. I was part of the collective bargaining committee. This is the first job that I've ever had where I did have a union. And I was really excited for that because in the past I also only worked on either pirate ship style scenario, small businesses, which can go either way. Like Spencer said, you're on your own then negotiating. So it really depends. And then or corporations or corporate America, in the sense that like it's just, again, that is how it is. You're interacting maybe with just your boss or your boss in HR. It's just you. It's not a group of people. So
and then you all don't talk about it. So
right.
You think you got a good deal, and then you find out this is how women making 70 cents on the dollar to men, how black women are making 60 cents on the dollar as opposed to white men.
Right.
It's because we also have a culture that has been so thoroughly used to exploitation of labor, going back to chattel slavery, that we can't have an honest conversation about these things, just even at the lunch table or at a cocktail party or whatever. Well,
yeah, if you bring up money to people, it's considered gauche.
And
that's what
the reality is, even if you make, and again, I don't know, I hate drawing red lines, but if you make $150,000 a year, like, you're broke ass bitch still. Like, I mean, I hate that because I don't make that kind of money, and I would love to make that kind of money.
Yeah.
But the reality is, a couple bad turns, they're no different than everybody else. So we should have solidarity. And just because you make 125, if you lived in a world that was better, more equitable, you wouldn't need 125. You wouldn't need that money. Right. Because we're saving money by working together. Like, so right. Next you should have worker solidarity with the person cleaning the toilets, person, whatever, doing any job.
Right.
And we should be talking about our wages. Right. So like when I go to places, this is my revolution. I go to a place and I'll talk to somebody and I see that they work a lot, right? I'm like, every time I come here, you're here, no matter what day. How many days you work? I just put questions in their head. Like, I don't try to be like workers' rights. But there's this one guy, he works 6 days a week for a corporation, like a bigger company. And he works 6 days a week and he probably makes like $120,000. It's like, dude, you're always here.
People used to ask me that when I worked.
You don't have a life.
In a restaurant. There were a few people that would be like.
But even if you make good money.
What do you do?
And
you recover and then go back to work. It's not good. That's why I'm so thankful to have a union.
And so I just kind of like, that's a lot of work. Like, that's a lot of time. Maybe it's not a lot of work. Maybe it's a lot of downtime. But like,
either way, it's a lot of time at work.
Yeah, you're physically in a building 6 days a week.
Right.
Like, that's not good for you. And like, do you want to hit 70 and be like,
right,
I spent all my time and like, oh, I rode my motorcycle and that was my fun.
Right.
Okay. So,
it's actually really nice that you asked, because I always felt like the people that asked me.
And I straight up ask. I take cues from the French people I've met over the years. I just straight up, what are they paying you? And in a way, I don't think they're paying. And I frame it in a way where like, they're not paying you enough. Because I just love to put that in people's heads. Like, yes, because I know what it costs to live. and you're making $12 an hour and selling me a $13 pack of cigarettes, they're not paying you enough.
Right.
That's
and
fucking crazy.
You can always ask, like, there's, what is the phrase? Like, it never hurts to ask. I always tell workers that.
And
like,
if they ask, like, oh, you can work more hours. No, dude, like, I'm here 30 to 45 hours a week. And I'm good with that. Like, maybe you have something you're like works good for you. Like, you have a good routine, and that makes you old. I'm not going to quibble about 45 versus 38 hours, but
it's just, the thing is, without a collective bargaining team like a union, if your boss is not a nice, thoughtful person, they might not be reasonable to negotiate with, which sucks. That's the part that's really upsetting.
And everybody's different. So unions kind of, you have to sacrifice a little bit of your individuality. You know what I mean? A little bit. That, and like,
For
and
sure.
that's what gets sold against you, or you have to pay dues. You have to like contribute to overhead for the union. And personally, like, maybe you could negotiate, the business has to pay for it.
So when I joined the collective bargaining, I'm like you know how we roll. I was like, and I was only an alternate member, but I jumped right in because and like yourself, I also was thinking like, oh, let's try something new with things, even just like what we ask administration for as a raise. Like, and they're either like 10 to 15 people at the time. And again, I was an alternate, so I couldn't vote, but I could be involved in the process with them planning to go before the administration and collectively ask for like what we as PSAUA wanted. But we did have workers like solidarity within the unions. The only thing I will say is, like, I don't think we should be split up the way we are, because they divide you and then try to conquer that way. So we've talked, that's gotten better, but like a lot of the time
they do that in Hollywood with the Screen Actors Guild and the Writers Guild.
Right. It's a total tactic. It's a tactic to use. Like, that's why it's like we all should just have one. It would be even harder though to negotiate. Is the like, it's like you said, you have to compromise. But I just found, I felt bad, and honestly, the people I'm working with, this is not to be saying that I didn't like the collective bargaining process. I just was basically told I was naive, and like, we couldn't ask for more than what they were proposing, because like that would never happen. And I'm just not the type of person that's
a dumb way to negotiate.
Well, I just feel like, why, if you don't ask, like, how do you know? And like, because there are 12 of you, like, I could still put forth that like, I guess, offer, but like everyone would have to, or a majority would have to agree that they'd want to try to like challenge administration. So it was a very interesting process, and there was so much that you have to negotiate. Like, we have, thankfully, because of it, like things like I now am a remote worker entirely 100%. They negotiate like some of the stuff with our healthcare, so like how much we pay and things like that. But oftentimes, like, we only get a cost of living wage, and like oftentimes the teachers unions in the state of Massachusetts, it can take like 2 years for the administration to negotiate with us. So then we have to get like retroactively paid for raises that we would have had because they didn't like come to terms. So it's a very long, sometimes very involved process that I give anyone who gets involved credit. Like, I haven't been involved in about a year. I had a lot of just personal stuff where I couldn't keep devoting that much time, because during the actual bargaining, we would have 8-hour long meetings. They were really fantastic. I learned so much, but then you also have like side homework and like committees you work on to finish each kind of like amendment you put forward. So I think it's a lot of work, but in the end, it's like when I've done job coaching for people, Singularity, or like how we talked about negotiating for ourselves, I think because you have like a group of people working with you, the end product is a really good document that it's hard for administration. Like, you have to really go back and forth. So it's interesting, and it definitely works. And you don't always get what you want, but like, I was basically, I had to eventually basically be like, all right, you got to tone it down, because there's apparently a point where you just can't over ask. So even in union bargaining, because like working with others can be a whole process, like you said, there's compromise too, but I still would never.
It's still better.
It's still better than not having that better there. Yeah, and it can.
So I'm trying to give credence. I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm trying to give credence to the actual criticisms of unions that exist in our subcontract in our and our subculture and our culture.
Well,
The point is, it's like last week we talked about the frog in the water analogy, where like you don't even
right.
realize the water is boiling. It's like, well, what you're arguing for is something we've never had. You're saying it's bad for something we've never literally had. And you're saying, let's accept this status quo because it's what we know, even though we know it's shit. We know where it's shitty. Well, there's all these potential problems if you unionize. And what my concern is, or my not concern, my reason I'm not like union only, I feel like I'm democracy focused, and I'm not so concerned about, is it a union doing it and negotiating with capitalists, or is it communism, or is it this, is it that? No, I think decentralized, non-siloed, when you get into a large organization like your union, right, and it becomes this machine on its own, and it's about hierarchy, and you just explain some hierarchy.
Well, and we do need to pay dues because, so this is like one example of why in the state of Massachusetts, and we'll talk more about right to work in a minute, but in the state of Massachusetts, teachers are not allowed to strike per our contracts. So we do have to pay dues to have lawyers in case we ever actually need to strike to like defend us, and lawyers in general to help with negotiating, and executives to run the offices, because how many teachers, how many different levels and silos and layers of our union are there? But it makes sense in a way that you'd pay dues for people to do administrative stuff. But it's just, so that's where you kind of have to think about those monies going. It's your own protection too. It's just, there's also like crazy parts to things. Like, to me, it's insane that we have that as a clause, but that's because we're a right to work state, which we can talk more about in a little bit.
And I guess what I'm saying is, don't let the perfect get in the way of the good on this, because
No,
I can
not.
point out all the flaws with every different organization, whether it's the Trump organization 2, where he's hiding his money, or or the New England Patriots, or the MBTA. I can criticize anything. It's because when you have such a big machine, right, that it's there's gonna be fucking problems.
Well, yeah, there's
and that's
always going
okay
to
be critical. Right. It's very okay, but like, let's not get the perfect, like, oh well, if you don't have a perfect democracy system for the workplace and life that doesn't upset our status quo, if you don't have that, then I'm just going to stick with not being able to demand a living wage and use the leverage of all of my community too, because the economy needs the people. This is what I hate about like ultra capitalists. It's like, you can't just make everybody so poor, then you'll have nobody to sell the shit to.
And I mean, that's the thing. So like a lot of places,
this boomer bust shit, it drives me nuts.
Austerity budgets. That's what that's what we talk about in like the union collective bargaining. Like a lot of places are operating on as if they have an austerity like budget that they have to maintain. And when reality, like we see how much corporations are making, or I mean, unless certain small business owners, sure, maybe you're not doing well, but I know there are some that do very well. So like, I mean, the austerity budget helps those people stay, like, keep the money where it is and keep us convinced that we shouldn't ask for more. It's like a messaging, like, okay, there's no money, but like there is, like, you're lying to me. And
right.
I think that is like, for me, the hardest part when organizing, to like I get very frustrated, but I understand it, the collective part, like you're saying, the democracy part of it, I would never give up. There are frustrating parts to it. I would still always want people to have this option over having to negotiate on their own.
Right.
And that said, I just want to just do a shout out to people in our listeners. If they ever feel that they need help negotiating on their own or being directed to a union, please email us at theweedout@gmail.com, because I did do job coaching, or I would help people with negotiations with their boss in the past, and I would be happy to help someone do that now. So I just want to let people know that I'm not alone.
And I would like to extend, the same invitation as part of the Weed Out. I have negotiated very poorly in my life. So I've also negotiated a lot better as well as a result of losing. And this goes back to when I was selling weed in college. You make mistakes, man. And I like to think that one of the things I've learned, and I want to share with everybody, is you don't have to be a dick. Because I used to confuse being a dick and straightforward and setting a boundary. And I used to just kind of think like, well, to set a boundary, you got to be a dick. And
No.
I've learned over time, like, no, setting the boundary is good. Like that's an instinct I have. Like, nah, fuck that. Like I got a little Quincy kid in me, and no. I remember what happened last time. Like going back to when I'm a 10-year-old walking on the street that fucking Jim Bob came by and was going to throw me in a bush. And it's like, I know what you're going to do. You turn around. No, we're not doing this again. I learned my lesson, So like I have that mentality, and, I've over leveraged myself with employers. I've given in sweat equity that I can never get back. I've destroyed my mental health for somebody else's business because I was trying to fix something deep inside of me and putting it into work and toxic girl bossing, man bossing, whatever you want to fucking call it. I don't know. And not saying I was like super into that MLM shit, but like I get it, where I'm like, I see why people fall for that trap. And I'm a lot happier now that I just basically sat down with anybody I'm exchanging my time for money and just be like, this is what it costs, man. Like, and not like being no, like I did the numbers, like this is what it costs. Like I need this to live, and I don't think I live an extravagant lifestyle, and I'm not going to say no, and you need me to do a unique job. So that's what it's going to cost, and that's roughly in the ballpark of $25 an hour, just to be, radical honesty. Like $25 an hour to get my labor. Like that's just to fucking keep the lights on. I don't know what to tell you. Like, I don't go on extravagant vacations,
And even if you did, the way people use their money, like I don't, you know what I mean? Like, even if you
normalize talking about this shit, because we all have these fucking problems, and also normalize like telling the truth about your family wealth. Don't play those games, man. We'll find out.
Well, yeah,
it will make you look weird. And like, I'm not saying you have to give your money away or give like your inherited wealth, but like at least own up to it.
Just be honest.
I'll own up to my inherited wealth. Like I've tried to be honest, like, without my in-laws and my family, like based on this economy, since I got out of college in the 2009, like there would be no fucking way I could have done this on my own. Any of this.
It's really hard. You're right, though. It's fine.
It's important to be grateful, but I have to be honest with people so they don't look at me and go, oh, like look at it, and how am I going to get like that? It's like, no, I got fucking lucky, and it's not perfect. Even my luck isn't perfect, like it came with costs. But again, my life's a-okay. I got a roof over my head, and it's important to be honest about that. So when you see other people at your job and you're like, I don't understand why they're struggling. Well, because whatever, like I work with a lot of immigrants. So I see like, I don't know how they can come here and make the money they make and like not be miserable. It's on the wire, and they're sending some of that home, or they're trying to like make themselves legal here, and that costs money, a lot of money.
Yeah, and that's why unions are important, so that people are not exploited.
I would love to be able to pool resources together with the dudes I work with, so that way if they need to like deal with any shit, legal issues or otherwise, like we should be a community. Like I need the guy that I count on every Tuesday when I go do my routine at my job. I like working with that person. Right. I think they make my job easier, even though we don't work for the same company. And I want to be able, like, if he got in some trouble with finances, like, I don't want him to have to like lose his job because he's going to jail, when we could collectively work together and have some sort of worker co-op union that you can reach into that resource. We should be helping each other in that way. And a lot of people want to say that's your problem. And we need to understand that the prison industrial complex, why we're abolitionists, and not everybody's abolitionists, but there's ways to work around this, and worker solidarity is definitely one of the ways. And supporting businesses that are not just winning, but standing up to their employers and organizing for asking for the bare minimum. Locally we have Trader Joe's, and potentially down the line, I don't think Amazon's happened yet, but I think they're trying.
Locally. Okay. Yeah. And then we also have,
and then, so Chris Smalls came up, a couple months ago. The Shoestring reported on other places reported on it too. them winning their union vote, and Chris Smalls came up to visit. Remember that?
Yeah, that was
To the
cool.
Hadley
That was
Hadley
awesome.
location. Hadley's between Amherst and Northampton in
And I
Western
love,
Mass.
shout out to that Trader Joe's. I love y'all.
So they're, for a big core, they're taking on a corporation. So that's a store you can feel good about going to, and that can kind
Totally.
of send a message, because look, the customer responds better to stores that have this for their employees.
Well, and I
that
will
let their
say, like,
employees.
it's like that store
They
is,
just want a sustainable
it's
job.
it's great to
That's
visit
good
all
for
the
us, the consumer.
right, and the workers seem happier, like, and they always kind of seemed happy in the past, but like it's one of those places where it like made sense that they would organize. So I'm just really, really happy because I love that store already. So that the fact that they're unionized makes it. I'm
And
just
then
so happy for them.
So I mentioned Chris Smalls coming up, and he's kind of like a face of the next generation of organized labor in the
Oh,
more
for
traditional
sure.
union sense. He helped organize the union in New York. He's their union president.
Amazon. Yeah, Amazon,
And
right?
for that, whatever, he's basically the face too, and he's a really cool guy. Like, I'm sure I don't know him personally, so like, but the fact that he's taken the risk and organized, and other people are taking risks, not just him. He's not an island. He's the face, and he's a good face at that. Like he won that union organizing, and he went and testified to Congress, stood his ground on old ghouls like Lindsey Graham from South Carolina, the guy who started his career by impeaching Bill Clinton for a blowjob, which is fucked up that a boss was having sex with his employee, Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky, right? That is a problem. But basically, Lindsey Graham has been clutching his pearls for a career and doesn't really give a shit. And he's so transparent. He said that he hated Donald Trump and now he defends him. So this motherfucker has the balls to say some shit to a younger man. He's still a man, grown up, Christian Smalls. And he, we have a clip.
Yeah, I'm gonna pull that up.
We should play. But he basically put
up right now.
Lindsey Graham in his place. Lindsey Graham is currently, just to give a big picture on this man, he's the one saying there should be a 15-week abortion ban nationally, while arguing that it's states' rights.
Right.
He wants to introduce federal legislation when his whole argument this whole time has been to do. This guy's a mess, and I'm glad that somebody that's not from the Ivy Leagues can so coherently turn him loose. And then he also, sidebar, he showed up to a meeting in the White House wearing an "Eat the Rich" insignia on his jacket and shook the hands
that was awesome
of the president. And I always dreamed that I'm the type of guy that if I got invited to the White House, I won't take my hat off because fuck you. Like,
I don't think he did either. He had a cap on too, I think.
Great. Like, but so I totally resonate with that. It's like, I'm like, fuck you. I won't do what you tell me. Like, that shit is antiquated. It's civility politics. I hate that shit. Do you know how good it makes me feel seeing somebody get a chance and do it and pull so many people in the name of civility, and it's honorable in a way, I guess, but it's like, no, fuck these guys. Even Joe Biden, like, he nice enough guy, but I'll say it, fuck, let's go, Brandon, fuck Joe Biden. Like, he's the reason we're in the student debt. He's the reason our insurance is the way it is. Like, homeboy is part of the machine, was part of the machine
forever.
That this legislation that came, he was in the caucuses compromising with Reagan. Right, in the 80s, and then
so many of these
Bush,
people,
and it's like,
so many of these old ones have been
their legislation is why we're in the shithole.
Mm-hmm.
And they also are telling the lie that America is a fair place. Anyways, so I just being able to go up to this guy and be respectful. I mean, hey, he's representing a crew of people that want to get something done. He's not going to go in there and have a petty grievance, but he's also going to not change who he is, and I respect that. And he's not going to sell out the movement and put on a dapper suit. No, it's kind of why Fetterman won in Pennsylvania. He kind of has that. He looks like he's from Pittsburgh. I don't know.
Yeah, it was really actually funny. Like it was like a razz, but like not to
stand the Democratic Party. It's like, wow, you guys accidentally do something right every now and then.
No, it was like really cute though, because they showed him and like his family, and they all were wearing like shorts and hoodies. And it
Yeah.
was just like they all just were like, that was just their vibe, and it was cute. It was really
Sorry,
cute.
y'all, for going on the fucking national stand. I know we normally talk about
Local
stuff,
stuff.
but this is how this ties. This guy
I
who
can
got to
play
meet,
it.
shake the hand of the president, and stand up for who he is.
He's been
And
here. He's been to
he's been
Hadley.
down the street from us, and that's pretty cool. So she's gonna play the clip of him talking to Lindsey Graham, and yeah, we'll catch you on the other side.
To address Mr. Graham, first off, it sounded like he was talking about more of the companies and the businesses in your speech, but you forgot that the people are the ones who make these companies operate. And if we're not protected, and if the process for when we hold these companies accountable is not working for us, then that's the reason why we're here today. And I think that it's in your best interest to realize that it's not a left or right thing. It's not a Democrat or a Republican thing. It's a workers thing. It's a workers issue. And we're the ones that are suffering in the corporations that you're talking about, and the businesses that you're talking about, and the warehouses that you're talking about. So that's the reason why I think I was invited today to speak on that behalf.
So you can, that clip, I mean, that whole thing is very widely been, the whole exchange has been widely circulated. So I recommend going listen to that. We won't torch you with Lindsey Graham's Southern Belle fainting couch routine.
Yeah.
And like saying he's not a racist while like being a racist. There's some wild shit. He's also a closet. He's closeted in some capacity. He's hiding a part of his identity, is the accusation. So there's multi-layered problems with Lindsey Graham. Talk about,
and just in general,
internalized misogyny and
he's just awful in general. The things he votes for, his policy choice is awful.
And he's inconsistent, and he's not even like a hypocrite. He literally, when they make the jokes on like in old timey movies about flip flopping, like Lindsey Graham is the ultimate. So. And he's been doing it a long time, and it's nice to see them get put in their place. So
yeah, Chris Smalls did such a
if you want to hear it, if you want to hear it, if you want to subject yourself to Lindsey Graham, maybe you can find a transcript, that way you don't have to listen to it. But
I can post this clip, and then I can try to find the entire congressional hearing. I'm sure it's on like C-SPAN or something, and post it.
But it's important to remember, though, this Christian Smalls is kind of he's the public facing, he's the megaphone for that particular union. The idea is we all have to have a little Christian Smalls in us. Like, we all have to do it in our way. We have to be honest about our wages. This is my call to action for the episode. Like, let's talk about this. Like, we're all swimming in this. This whatever you want to call it, the money sphere. Like, it affects all of us. Mm-hmm. It's like when you have abstinence only sex education, you have STDs, unwanted pregnancies, and poverty, right? It's the same idea. So we need to go down to the core. We need to talk about profit motives. Fuck a lot of shit up. Healthcare. We could cure cancer if it weren't about paying off the tech that were developed the last 10 years and putting people on a payment plan with tech they developed 10 years ago to pay it off. Like, that's how we look at it, as opposed to just doing it for doing it, right? Medicine or anything. And, renewable energies, et cetera, et cetera. Like, we need the radical action that we can do is talk about it. Find there's the Workers' Party in Massachusetts. That's a political party that is focused on workers say at the table. Like, we need to just normalize talking about this stuff, and it doesn't have to be a knockout, drag out. And as Christian Smalls said, it's not about left, right, Republican, Democrat. It's not about liberal, leftist, right, conservative, and fascists. Like, ultimately, everybody wants stability and comfort, and that's housing, food, water. And we need to have these conversations. So the little micro things we can do is just normalize, like, hey, we all talk about how much gas prices are. Let's talk about how many hours it takes for me to get my tank filled up.
Right. And that's happening.
And put it in those terms. So because we have the tendency to look at like Christian Smalls, like these big, like Christian Smalls meeting with Lindsey Graham, blah. It's like, no, the radical action has to happen down on our level and it has to be decentralized, like ultimately.
Well,
And
and
these
you
are
and
just-
yes, and union popularity is on the rise. So like that's a
And
good thing.
unions
Like
are-
people are
It's
thinking
a
more and
tool though.
more.
So don't like put all your like nuts in baskets. Like the Christian Smalls is a human being, you know, he's not, you know, and we play his clip, so I'm just going to keep using him as an example. But, you know, AOC is not she's a tool, like it's a tool to like get where we got to go. And
Right, but so like, but
try
they
to hold
are,
them accountable.
yeah, but it
But
is
they're not our
it's-
saviors. That's
it's
how
a-
you get Donald Trump.
Well, right, but collective bargaining is a tool that's really helpful for workers, and it's literally nearly in like 20 years, like the rise of unions because of people like Chris Smalls or people in those positions. Like it's really since the pandemic, especially, like very, in my opinion, it's impressive how many different like people have just begun organizing and talking, like you're suggesting. So I agree completely. Keep talking about it.
Yeah, and there's ways we can, you know, we can do that in just very normal ways, and it doesn't have to be a big verbose thing. And you know, just being honest with our neighbors, and like it's okay to be vulnerable like that, and it's humanizing. And I want to like keep the positive here. So the radical action that we can do is just all these little things, and you know, we have a lot of like. We have to really unpack things like what is right to work, which is in Massachusetts is one of 26 states that have laws that are right to work. And basically it sounds good, but at the end of the day, it creates an imbalance in a vacuum, because if you're not in a union, or you don't have to be in a union per se, they can manipulate the market so that it brings down the union wages. It's a way to bring down union wages, because if you have non-union work that gets to compete against union work, it's to suppress the union wages.
Right. And
that's
like,
how it ultimately works out.
Right. And
So
Elizabeth,
it's sneaky legislation that's been in effect for so long at this point too,
right.
that where it's so normalized, frog in the water, like this is not a good exchange.
And it tries to convince workers that it's about like saving them money. But
This is part of the trickle down
yeah, exactly.
economic plan. It's
Yeah.
so this is something that goes along with goes hand in glove with the trickle down economic plan. So the reality is to suppress us. And that includes anybody that literally needs to work a job to live, which is I guarantee everybody listening to this, or most. I mean, good for you if you're not. But like also start being honest with your friends about that too, if you aren't already. I'm assuming you are if you're an abolitionist. It's kind of hard to square the circle if you're not, like, don't realize it all comes down to that. It's just about being honest about kind of everything. And it doesn't mean give away your deep dark secrets. It just means the things we all have to deal with, we have to talk about, normalize it. And right to work is bad. And, you know.
Yeah, Elizabeth Warren in September of this year put like a bill forward to get rid of right to work because it does block unions at the congressional level. So I feel like my call out at this point after the midterms, now we're a democratically controlled state, is
Next time you're
like,
blue
come
collar,
on now, like change that law.
next time your blue collar family member at Thanksgiving or whatever says, "Oh, Elizabeth Warren," you know, the slur that Donald Trump calls her, I won't even repeat it. Referring to her controversy about her Native American heritage. She's her policy right there, that particular policy is pro-worker.
Right.
So like, say what you want about whatever, but like, that's a good policy. So
well, and our state should
remember, like, yeah, you don't have to love Elizabeth Warren or whoever, but that's a pro worker policy. And most of these people that say those bigoted, racist things about and sexist things about her, they would be very happy if that change actually went into place.
Well, or like the people like Trump who are
So
saying that,
call
like,
these people out in your life is what I'm saying. And in a way, we're like, no, that's a pro shit. Look at all these pro worker policies.
yeah, and I mean, I just think at like our state level now that Democrats control
Not an Elizabeth
everything.
Warren fan, by the way.
Yeah, I'm just, and like at the I like the bill because it's like, okay, it calls it out, but like I just feel like in democratically controlled states, especially now, like come on, Maura Healey and like our state government, like line up, like I hope Liz Warren can tell her to change this policy because it is bad for workers, it's not good for workers, and typically a Republican would be the one to put forward a right to work type of scenario because they wouldn't want a union in place. So
And it basically it normalizes picket crossing. So it lessens the ability
right.
for people to organize and picket their job, right? And like in some unions, like your union, you can't picket, right?
We
Or
have to
not
decide.
easily.
Well, we have to like vote to like I said, vote to decide. But you're right, and like that's also a good way to show worker solidarity, even if you're not in a union, to not cross a picket line if you're able to. Like if there's a reason you absolutely need to, okay. But I don't know what that might be. But like ideally, like if you don't have a union, but you still want to support things in some way, like purchase from stores that have unions. Don't cross picket lines, things like that.
Right.
But yeah.
So, and remember, this is where it all ties back into abolition. The police have some of the most effective unions as far as just nuts and bolts, keeping their people, keeping their power structure.
And the pace that they get, like
just their
teachers unions
power.
we can't ask for that and get it.
Right. And then they have the built-in threat of we take away your protection. You have a nice little town you got there. It would be a shame if some crime happened there. And think about it. They're holding us hostage. Look at their Facebook post before you go to the budget hearing. Notice that, and it doesn't have to be a conspiracy. This is human nature.
No, that happens locally.
Protect their budgets.
Every budget season.
They have a tool that the teachers union doesn't have. They have a tool that I don't have. They have the power of fear, violence, and a history of demonizing the other. Like this country has always been fascist. I know I get a little hype on this, but it's always been fascist. And it goes to show you they have a union and they can break up and arrest protesters.
Right. So that's not solidarity. So the police.
So that's not worker solidarity.
No,
so inherently, that's why when you hear me say class traders, that's one reason.
Exactly.
Another reason is just in general, the only people that end up suffering under the system that they uphold are working class people.
Right.
And regardless, so they're class traders in so many ways. And you can't have worker solidarity with them. So I'm giving you all the bullet points for dealing with Uncle Frank, right? You can't have worker solidarity with an institution that inherently only hurts workers.
Right.
Whether because they can break up their protests, they're class traders. I'm sorry. That's why they get paid that money.
They could arrest you for striking, and they would try to strike.
And they can, blocking traffic, whatever they do, and like different communities have different rules. So it's not a blanket. In the United States, you can do whatever you want. There are a lot of laws about protesting. Go look at Florida's protesting laws. Look at some of Massachusetts protesting laws.
Right.
You can't just have a bunch of people in every town or ordinance just show up and stand. You can't. You have to get a petition. It's fucking wild. Because it's to slow down and take away momentum and to numb us, right? And that's okay. I also don't revel in the idea of everybody getting to the point where we have to go and shout outside a building. Like that sucks.
Right.
But why we're not doing this with police when they're clearly not on our side?
I agree, and I'm just going to share on our website.
So I agree that unions, but that's about power and hierarchy, right? So things can get corrupted. So even a union at its inception could be a good thing, and Chris Schmalz and that union could end up being corrupted. It's very possible, but guess who's likely doing the corruption? Those who would benefit the most from that union getting weaker and or more complicit, the corporations, the billionaires, the oligarchs, right? So either way, it's about worker solidarity. No matter what you do, no matter which way you slice it, there is no both sidesing this, unfortunately.
Yeah, and that's why the police associations or the unions really do give unions a bad name. And you're right, using safety against the community. I'm just going to share a few examples on our website. People can check them out. Police do this all the time. They, Spencer was saying on Facebook, they make you feel afraid before budget seasons I can grab a few examples. And then I have an example out of Kansas City where they literally wouldn't respond to calls as retaliation.
Atlanta during George Floyd.
Right. So
Very notable.
So, I mean, it does happen. We're not just saying this and making it up. And like, as a teacher who can't, it's illegal to strike in that union, like as someone who is in that union, not a teacher, but it is illegal for me to strike. And I feel like if the police are so essential to our safety, how is it not?
Right.
And how are they?
Google.
I mean, if you care about safety of your community too, just a call out to police officers, like, how sick are you that you want to help people, but you're going to not answer a call because you're not
Google
getting your way?
NYPD sick out.
Oh yeah.
Where they coordinate just not showing up to work because they're mad about some stupid policy because you got to write in a blue pen and not a black pen now, or whatever or now it's all on computers and some people just don't like fucking change and they'll literally withhold their quote unquote services. And we just fucking go with it. And it's because they got the guns, they got the quote unquote information on where the bad people are. So it's all leverage held over us. And this is why we say they're working class traders, because otherwise they would be working on the docks. They would be typing things in an office building somewhere else and making 2/3 the money that they're making as a cop who upholds a system that will break up unions, break up union organizing, break up protests, pickets, protesting the status quo in the name of protecting property, right? Mm-hmm. They put property over people. That is literally, the Supreme Court has told us this. They argue this all the time.
Mm-hmm. They do not have to protect us. The police are not. They are not responsible for protecting people.
And this is tied to unions, and they also give unions a bad rap. All the things, well,
that's the thing. That's the part that's the worst, because they do get they negotiate far higher raises, incredible benefits, like the overtime stuff. So in your own local community, you might be able to access their contracts as public record and check out what's going on. And just locally, I mean,
just go to your Facebook.
Check out your local budget.
Unfortunately, if you're on Facebook
of a police
just
station.
go to the town. Every town I'm not on Facebook. Thank fucking God.
No, but the police stations do post on Facebook. They're really,
and they also have Holyoke. They have Hello Holyoke or whatever the Facebook group is, right? And you'll see what we're talking about. You'll see it from your fellow citizens, which is depressing. But those people are. I always try to be half glass full. Maybe I'm not the guy to communicate with them, but those people are probably reachable. They are. The average human being, even though they can be capable of saying crazy shit and thinking crazy shit, they can also be shown other ways. So
totally.
I'm not as freaked out. I get worried when the police are playing on those people. That's what fucking drives me nuts. Or the politicians in the town are manipulating that. And it's it's not this big thought out plan. Everybody's just doing their thing. These are people that are in a hierarchy. They're trying to consolidate power because that's the problem with our system. It's about getting power at all costs in the name of profit in any position, public sector, private sector, whatever. So this is the game we're all playing. So this all comes down to worker solidarity. We have good news. There are unions popping up. There's
across the state it's on the rise. In Massachusetts, they're on if you're in a position where you can join your union, please do. And like I said, reach out to the Weed Out if you wanted help with organizing or needed more information and felt like it was overwhelming, because we would be willing to send you information.
Bonus snark for your really annoying whoever in your life that loves to bash unions, even though they probably have benefited from union in some capacity in their life. This is what you say to them when they bring up the teachers union. Well, the teachers union is corrupt. Why wouldn't Trader Joe's union be corrupt? That will be said. That is the number one argument. And you go, oh man, you jujitsu them, right? You go, oh man, crazy. I agree. Yeah, unions that are out of control. Have you heard about the NYPD?
Exactly.
Have you heard about the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department?
Or your own local?
Have you heard about Holyoke Police and how they've used their union to bully counselors?
Greenfield,
you want to
Greenfield
talk
has it,
about
like
some
so many
wild
places.
You
It's
want to talk about
crazy.
some wild shit? Let's talk about their unions and workers association.
Right. It's like if
and,
you
and then you see right away it's not about the union. It's their preconceived notions about intellectualism, or their preconceived notions about socialism, communism, organizing, collectivism, because of the brainwashing of the thing we're swimming in. And this is all, I don't mean to be doom and gloom, because there is a lot of good stuff, but like we just have to be honest about the waters we're swimming in.
and it's better to be swimming in union waters. That's just
Generally, at least we'll know which way the tide is moving.
exactly.
You know, it's not constant riptide.
And and it's a good thing. It's good news, actually, what we're talking about, because like we said, like union organizing, which is fantastic, is up in the highest it's been in like more than 20 years. So that's amazing. At least people are out there sharing their stories. Like Chris Smalls going to Congress. I mean, like locally, we're seeing like different stores unionize, and
go to our website, check out all the citations we reference. Please follow us on social media, engage with us. Twitter is unfortunately probably not going to be the same ever again. So, we're trying to,
we're going to be there until it's down.
We're going to be there until that's down, but also
yeah.
like TikTok is in the future. We got some stuff up now. So
we do. And we're on Instagram, Facebook,
right.
Substack. So we're all over, but I will miss Twitter. That's why I said it that way.
And I want to report to anybody that's shy about engaging with us. We have had, since our last calls for engagement, we've had people reach out to us. So we have some, we have content coming down the line.
Really
and,
exciting stuff. Yeah.
We don't want to overpromise, but we have had engagement, and we're going to collaborate with other people. So if you have anything you'd like to share with us in any way, and think outside the box. It doesn't have to be like, here, I wrote an essay. No, it's just like, hey, have you looked into this even? Or why is this road always in construction? Like, even if it's something we're not into, maybe there's something to dig there. So we weed out things here. So nothing too abstract. I know we talk about abolition, but we're talking about abolition of not just of prisons. So, but that also means you have to build other structures up. So that's our positive spin. And I just want to remind everybody to check out our Substack, subscribe to all those things. It's really helpful for us to project what is working, and understand what people are engaging with. So, and it's so far people have seemed to, just a little peek behind the curtain, people have really liked the Holyoke City Council. There's been a lot of engagement on that, but so thank you for everybody for listening, and check out our Patreon. We have that set up now, and yeah, we're thankful that you guys have been on the journey with us, and we're gonna talk more about unions down the line, because we want to get more workers involved in general. So not just unions, but let's just weed out the nonsense every day. So that's all from me. I hope everybody has a good rest of your day. And Joanna, would you like to say goodbye to everybody?
Yeah, and this is our 10th episode, so thank you everyone, like Spencer said, for listening and engaging with us. It's really just great to be here, and thank you, Spence, for all your time spent working with me on this. And take care, everybody.
Have a good one.